was awake when it happened. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I remember walking into the room and there was just a real feeling of death. Everyone was crying and I wanted to turn around and run out. And I remember just thinking, when will it be over? When will it be over? When will it be over? When will it be over?
And I guess the promiscuity and the sleeping around and the physical attraction to guys made me feel like I had some kind of security. It made me feel like I had some power.
I started to date in high school when I was 14 years old. Very young, very naive. I'm certain now that I didn't have the emotional maturity to handle a relationship of that magnitude and got involved very quickly with him in a physical manner. Flippantly gave up my virginity at that same age without any thought or regard to what it meant or what it was.
I started dating when I was 13 and dated a boy for 2 years. 2 years too long. And I was one of these girls who was never going to lose my virginity. You know, I was going to save myself for marriage. And so I had every intention of honoring that. But when you're dating someone, the same person for 2 years, things just eventually lead to other things. And before I knew it, it had happened. And it was devastating. I'll never forget it. And I knew that I had given away the most precious gift that I could have ever given my future husband, and I would never be able to have that gift to give again.
That began a lifelong road of promiscuity in my life, and person after person, relationship after relationship, I sought encounters with men, and know now that I was seeking love and wanting security and wanting to feel good about myself.
Went off to college and I met a guy. We dated for a year and broke up the first of the summer. I saw him a couple more times that summer, and in August of that year when I was 20, found out I was pregnant.
I involved myself in several relationships and kept all of that secret, again holding people at bay and being very isolated, and had even people say about me that I was hard to get to know, and there was very specific reasons for that. I didn't want people to know me. I met a man again and got involved with him, and that resulted in a pregnancy.
I was involved in discipleship and Campus Crusade for Christ, and I was chaplain of a sorority. But in my private life, nothing had really changed. And I was worried about my testimony and what people would think. And I remember calling the father of the baby and telling him what was going on, and he just said, "You've got to get rid of it." And so that's what I did. I aborted that child.
And I called the father of the child, and he asked me to dispose, to get rid of the baby. And I knew in my heart that that was wrong, and debated over and over again if that would be the best option for the baby, for me, for him. How could I possibly raise a child? What would everybody think? How could I go and tell my church, you know, the church that I'd moved here for, and knew the devastation that was soon to follow.
So at 15 years old, I was pregnant and scared, and I went to my mom, fully thinking that the choice was, do I put this baby up for adoption, or will you help me raise this child? And when I went to my mother, I'll never forget, she looked at me and she said, "I know exactly what to do, and you don't worry about anything, and I'm going to take care of this." And she picked up the phone and she made the appointment for the abortion.
Looking back, I can remember about a month after I had the abortion, I was sitting in a nursing class, and the next day we had to go to the hospital, and I saw a baby born. And I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't breathe. I had to leave. And I remember going home and just asking God to forgive me for the 100th time. And I don't know if it was consciously, but I know that that's when I made a choice just to cut things off emotionally. I built walls up, became very angry and detached, and continued to play church and play in my role of walking with God, but I really wasn't.
Nobody told me that I would be emotionally scarred for the rest of my life. Nobody told me that I may never be able to have a child again, or that the baby that was inside of me already had a heartbeat and brain waves and little hands and feet. None of that was discussed. Just a real cold, harsh, ugly place to be. They let you go out the back door. They don't have you come in. Go out the front because they don't want the other women to see what you look like when you go out. Because when a woman has an abortion, there's 2 deaths, not just the child, but a part of you dies along with that child. I went home and I didn't understand why I still felt so bad, because the world had told me that it was my choice and my right to make that decision, and that everything should be better. My problems should all go away. There's always consequences to sin, and for me, my consequences were immediate. My relationship with my parents, there was a wedge there for 20 years between us because of this decision. My grades plummeted. My self-esteem went from bad to worse. I didn't understand that my feelings were all connected to the abortion, and therefore I tried to escape it. Of course, I didn't have God to turn to, so I turned to drugs and alcohol and continued promiscuity because I wasn't receiving any support or love at home, and I was so hungry and desperate for that, and didn't know that there was a Heavenly Father just waiting for me to call out to Him.
And at 25, I again found myself pregnant and just knee-jerk had a second abortion. Didn't even really think about that one. Drove myself to the clinic and drove myself home. And I remember telling the father of the baby that I was pregnant, and then I called him back and said, oh no, it was false. So he never really even knew what I did. Choices always catch up to us because 2 years later I married him.
When I was 26 years old and in my second unhealthy and unhappy marriage, we had already filed for divorce. I found out I was pregnant again, and again went back into the abortion clinic. And again, thinking I was doing the best thing for everyone involved. I wasn't financially able to support this child. I didn't want to raise this child without a father. And so I did what the world told me to do. This would not be a wanted child, so have the abortion.